Wounded Knee Creek. Have you ever heard of it? It's in history. To white people, it was the last great Indian battle. To most Native Americans and historians today, it was a massacre. And yet, for hundreds of years, the nomadic Lakota had flourished. They had created a culture that assimilated into the topography and forged a religion and a social culture that sustained order. What they could not survive was the white race as it conquered and forced an economic, religious, and social system on people who only wanted to be left alone. By 1890, the ghost dance had spread onto the Great Plains. The government ordered the dance stopped, and they ordered Sitting Bull, the last great traditional chief, to be arrested. By the hundreds, the military moved in and onto the South Dakota reservations throughout the month of December 1890. At 4 a.m. on the morning of December 15th, 43 Indian police and their United States military advisors went to Sitting Bull's cabin to arrest him. Resisting a fight, a scuffle ensued. He was shot and killed instantly, shot in the head. The news of Sitting Bull's death quickly found its way to Pine Ridge. Pine Ridge was the most anti-government of all the reservations. Red Cloud was barely able to sustain order. Anger, hysteria, and a commitment to dance. We are going to dance no matter what the United States wants. It rose to a fever pitch. And at that moment, then, the Army ordered all of the ghost dancers to be forced to go to a place called Wounded Knee Creek. There, in the next 2 weeks, over 350 Minji Kanju and Hunk Papa, mostly women and children and older couples, arrived and continued, against government orders, the ghost dance. Overlooking them, on a hill, were Hotchkiss guns in place by the 7th Cavalry of the United States Army, soldiers prepared for conflict. The snow, ice, and freezing weather made life miserable for both the Indian and soldiers. In their traditional circle, poorly clothed and poorly fed, they danced throughout the night, praying for salvation. Well, at daybreak, it was freezing. The military passed out rations for all. And then they demanded that all of the men and women and children come into a circle, and the guns and other arms would be surrendered. One Minji Kanju wanted money for his rifle and began to sing and dance. A scuffle between the soldiers broke out. The rifle accidentally discharged, and all hell broke out. The next day, 153 and their chief, Bigfoot, were buried on the hill in a massive burial trench. 25 soldiers were killed and 43 wounded, but the government had stopped the ghost dance.
My name is Candace Crystal. I'm the artistic director here at American History Theater. And I have with me today Marcia Hunter from Breaking Down Barriers. So Marcia, I'll let you go ahead and start off by introducing yourself and telling us what you do at Breaking Down Barriers.
Hello, my name is Marcia Hunter. I am the Native American Outreach Coordinator for Breaking Down Barriers. I am an enrolled member of the 3 affiliated tribes. I am a Rickarol, Mandan, and Northern Cheyenne. And I am currently in San Diego, specifically National City. And I just want to acknowledge that I am on Kumeyaay territory here in San Diego.
Amazing. Thank you for that. And how do you feel Wounded Knee shaped America today?
For me personally, I am part of the Plains Native American, so Wounded Knee was pretty close to my community, my Native American tribe. And Wounded Knee, I was told since I was young from my grandmother, I've got an alternative history lesson from members. So I never knew it was called, other battles were called Little Bighorn Battle. I knew as Custer's Last Stand. Like my grandmother worded it to me to tell me that the natives won. So when we heard, when my grandmother taught us about what happened at Wounded Knee, it was a story of the ending of our generation, our ending of our control of area. A lot of it is the ending of the Native American and then the future of America. So it was one of those big battles that really hurt our Native community to see that we were honest people. We were trying to work things out. But America at the time was trying to get rid of the Native American problem, the Indian problem, because of manifest destiny. There was gold, there was land, there was abundance of the stuff, and it really hurt the Native American community.
Right, right. And so I know one thing at Breaking Down Barriers is we talk a lot about, or you all, I should say, talk a lot about mental wellness and mental well-being. And what effect do you feel from Wounded Knee to even now? I know we were going to talk about Standing Rock soon. What effect do you feel like that has had on the mental well-being of Native Americans and Indigenous people?
It goes back to historical trauma, the intergenerational trauma, the feeling of survivor guilt. The people that did survive, the family members that lived on, and their family members that died in those the massacres and the genocide that happened, and not being able to mourn. Us as Native Americans, especially for Plains Indians, I can talk from my own community that we mourn for a year when somebody passes.
Wow.
Yeah, we take a whole year. We don't dance, we don't sing, we don't we go to powwows, but we don't um, go into the circle because we are mourning for a year. And we cut our hair. We cut our hair to give to that person, to detach, to give up we carry our emotions in our hair. And when somebody dies, we cut it as showing respect and cutting that tie and taking that year to mourn. And when mass genocide happens like that, we don't have time to mourn. Those people don't get the right burials, and it hurts. It gets passed down. These are stories that have constantly been passed down about what happened at Wounded Knee, and people that still feel that pain of what happened. It can lead to coping mechanisms. We were never taught. Our traditional ways were taken away when it comes to coping mechanisms. How we mourned and how we celebrated. And we didn't have those. It was against the law. It was forbidden for us to do those things. Our proper coping mechanisms weren't there. So we took on what was in Western civilization, in the white America of there was alcoholism. We were introduced to alcohol. It was just these things we never were taught, passed down. And alcoholism is a big problem in Native country. And even the shame of it, we don't know how to talk about it. We don't know how to deal with it. And suicide is a big problem also in our community. Sometimes we're always this idea of the bad Indian or the drunk Indian, or ideas, these mentalities that have been a public stigma of us, as we internalize them and we do self-stigma and we do self-sabotage ourselves.
Right.
Because we've never been taught how to cope with these problems, or our feelings or past history.
Do you feel like that might have affected you personally, in that that's why you're working with Breaking Down Barriers and you're trying to make that difference within your own community?
Yes, I've had personal, especially with the illnesses that happened with my family, very open about what's happened to my family. And the part of my mother died by suicide when I was 18. And she had her own problems with alcoholism and mental health. And my grandmother not knowing how to take care of her, or how to make sure she was healthy and be there for her, because her own coping mechanisms were keep everything in the family, don't reach out for help. If we reach out for help, they'll take you away. They'll take the children away. this idea of we can take care of ourselves, but not knowing how to do it. Of course, my grandmother tried smudging or prayer and those kind of things, but sometimes there's so much it can do, and there's so much that my mother was dealing with that it just we could have used outside help, but it's just the stigma of reaching outside of our community is very hard.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
What would you say if someone from your community was watching right now and they needed help and they didn't maybe know where to start? What direction would you point them in?
For me, so I live in California in San Diego. I'm away from my reservation. I'm away from my people and my family. And so I really look to the elders that are out here in the urban areas for assistance. Some of them were my grandparents' friends growing up. So I've had some great teachers for reaching out for resources, or I'm just not feeling it today, and giving me hugs and you should go to the clinic. The clinic has these new programs, and even just reaching out to be culturally part of things. There's urban dance groups out here in San Diego that everybody's welcome to go to just to connect. They teach you how to dance, and they teach you how to make regalia, and it's these are alternative ways of helping self-care and
Mhm.
your mental health, community, and like culturally, that feel comfortable to me.
Amazing. I love to hear that. I definitely appreciate being here and learning so much about the American indigenous people and the Kumeyaay, and I didn't even know about them until I moved to San Diego. So
Mhm.
it's so interesting as you learn more. You're like, I want to learn even more, and I feel like I'm slowly becoming a sponge and like, oh, so these tribes may do things similarly, but they may also do things differently, and it's such an enriching moment when you can really be around people who've lived through things and who can really inform you of that culture. And I just love it, and I am so grateful you were here today. um, any final thoughts, any parting words for anyone watching today, whether it's about you personally, breaking down barriers, or the American indigenous people who may be watching today as well?
I would say that to learn your history about your people and to not be ashamed of it. I've learned a lot about my people, and there ha- the American government has won against wars against us. We've had to move to smaller reservations or relocate, and I feel like our resiliency is something that we should be very proud of. And I feel like we are still here, and to be proud of that, and to reach within your community for support and help. Because even being an urban native, I still have a community of people out here that are indigenous, that are not from my tribe, that have taken me in and adopted me and made me feel loved. And it really does help your mental health, and it helps to get supported that way.
Amazing. Well, thank you for that. And if you could just give us, if someone wanted to contact you directly through Breaking Down Barriers, how could they do that?
So we have a Breaking Down Barriers website, and it's no stigma at jfs.com. But I we have our BDB Instagram too, where all our personal contact information is on there. And my personal email is my first name, Marcia, MARCAHU at jfs.com.
Beautiful. And that'll be on a graphic. So if anyone needs that information, it will be in the description. Thank you so much for joining us, Marcia. We greatly appreciate you being here.
Before his death, the holy man, Black Elk, reflected on that day. So it was over. I can still see the butchered women and children lying heaped and scattered all along the crooked gulch. And I can see that something else died there in the bloody mud and was buried in the blizzard. A people's dream died there. You see pitiful old men, for the nation's hoop is broken and scattered. There is no center any longer, and the sacred tree is dead. Black Elk, 1930. That was Wounded Knee, 1890.